Good morning, boys and girls. Happy Monday. It's April 27th and it's our first day back from April vacation. I hope you got rest. I hope you were able to enjoy the few nice days of weather. And now we are full swing. We're continuing remote learning until the end of the year, as you've heard. But we're going to have just as much effort with all of our work. So let's stay on task. You have 3 assignments for today on Google Classroom, plus you're reading IXL and Prodigy. So make sure you're checking Google Classroom for those assignments. All right, here we go. So we are learning about equivalent fractions today. And again, we've talked about equivalent fractions a few times. 2 fractions, right? They have different numbers for numerator and denominator, but they are worth the same amount. So here we go. Cole brought a submarine sandwich to the picnic. He shared the sandwich equally with 3 friends. So I underlined with 3 friends and Cole because that's a total of 4 people that we're working with here. The sandwich was cut into eighths. What are 2 ways to describe the part of the sandwich each friend ate? Cole grouped the smaller pieces into 2s. Draw circles to show equal groups of 2 pieces to show what each friend ate. So what I did is I just drew groups around each 2 pieces, and you can kind of see they cut each one for you. So when I make groups of 2, I end up having 4 groups total. There are 4 equal groups. Each group is a fourth of the whole sandwich, right? So each group, we're not looking at individual pieces right now. We're looking at each group. Each group is 1/4 of the whole sandwich, right? 1 group out of 4. So each friend ate a fourth of the whole sandwich. How many eighths did each friend eat? Now this is equivalent fractions now. So again, we could say 1/4, but if we looked at each individual piece, well, there's 8 total. And if you look closely, they ate 2 out of 8. So you could say they ate a fourth of the whole sandwich, or if you want to look at individual pieces, they ate 2/8 of the sandwich. And that means that 1/4 and 2/8 are equivalent fractions since they both name the same amount of the sandwich. So 1/4 and 2/8 of the sandwich are 2 ways to describe the part of the sandwich each friend ate. All right, there's a nice look at that. Therefore, 1/4 and 2/8 are equivalent fractions. I'm going to be using the trick in the lesson today where you can either multiply or divide the top number and the bottom number by the same thing. And when you do that, you get an equivalent fraction. That's a really great trick to keep in your mind for equivalent fractions. Okay, try this. Circle equal groups. Write an equivalent fraction for the shaded part of the whole. So when I circle equal groups, I can actually see them. They kind of gave us a hint here. I'm going to do this. So 4/8, right? If you look at each individual piece, you have 8. And 4 are shaded brown, so 4/8. Well, that's the same thing as, now let's look at the bigger picture. We have 2 groups, and 1 is shaded out of the 2 groups. So 4/8 is equal to 1/2. And we know that because 4 is half of 8. Now let's look at the trick here and what we could do. You can ask yourself, okay, how do I get from 8 to 2 with either multiplication or division? Well, I know that I can divide 8 by 4 to get 2. Whatever I do to the bottom, I do to the top. And 4 divided by 4 is 1. So there's that trick. I'm dividing bottom and top by 4, and I get an equivalent fraction. You could divide bottom and top by 2, and you would get an equivalent fraction as well, as long as they're the same and they can be divided by the number you choose. moving on. Heidi ate 3/6 of her fruit bar. Molly ate 4/8 of her fruit bar. Which is the same size, and which girl ate more of her fruit bar? So here I shaded in 3/6 for Heidi, and here I shaded in 4/8 for Molly. Remember, each piece is a unit fraction. That was the very beginning lesson of fractions, okay? Now if I shade 3/6, that's half. If I shade 4/8, that's also half. So this is a half, this is a half. They're equivalent. I wrote this little note for myself. I said, they're the same total amount, just different piece sizes. Oops. Right? Same total. You can see it, right? You can see that these are the same amount taken up. However, these are split into smaller pieces. Again, if we went back to the idea of cake, you're not going to say Heidi had more cake. They had the same amount, just Molly's was cut into smaller pieces. All right, so filling in these blanks, we did this, shaded 3/6, we shaded 4/8. Is 3/6 greater than, less than, or equal to 4/8? Well, we decided that they're equal to. So both girls ate the same amount. All right, here we go. Each shape is one whole. Write an equivalent fraction for the shaded part of the models. So here's this one, which they did for you. All right, and that's this fraction right here. Now, these are where we were finding parts of a whole. Now, 6 is how many pieces we have. And then when you have your 3 there, that is telling you how many pieces you're specifically looking at. So 6/3. Now we want an equivalent fraction over here that would represent the same amount. So again, you notice that your numerator for this one is 6, which is how many pieces total. Now over here, there are 12 pieces total, and one piece of that is 6, because we were only looking at one piece of this one. So we're going to do the same for this one. So 6/3 is equivalent to 12/6. Again, we can use our trick. Whatever you do to the bottom, you do to the top. 3 times 2 is 6. 6 times 2 is 12. All right, just like you can divide, you can also multiply, as long as they're the same. Okay, share and show number 1. Each shape is one whole. Use the model to find the equivalent fraction. So this one we have 2 shaded out of 4, so 2/4, and that's equivalent to 1/2. 2 total pieces, one of them shaded in. Again, that trick, I want you to be practicing this trick and showing your work so that you get used to it. The more you do it, the easier it's going to be. Because when you get older, and when I do math, I always try to be real with you. When you get older, you're not going to be drawing out a ton of fraction strips, right? So, if you are baking 2 cakes and you're going to be splitting them up differently, you're not going to take out your fraction strips and your baking supplies, right? You're going to just try to do this in your head. And I think this is the easiest way to find equivalent fractions in your head, is to remember this trick here. So right now in 3rd grade, when we're learning fractions, I don't want to just teach you a bunch of tricks. I want to show you why behind those tricks, but I also want to show you what you can do quickly to figure it out for the future. All right, number 2, each shape is one whole. Shade the model to find the equivalent fraction. Again, remember that trick. So here I have 2/4, right? 2 out of 4 pieces total. And what I did to find an equivalent fraction is I used my quick trick. I did 4 times 2 on the bottom and 2 times 2 on the top. I got 4, so I shaded in 4. And those 2 fractions are equivalent. And now just thinking 2/4 is a half of what I see here, right? 2/4, I could divide 2 by 2 and 4 by 2 and I would get a half. But just looking at this fraction, I can see that half of it's shaded blue. Now, if I looked at this one, I shaded this before I videotaped, but if I looked at this one, I could just tell myself, okay, I'm going to fill in half of the squares. I could have shaded in these 4, but I did the top 4, as long as it's half of the shape you're given. All right, number 3. These are more finding parts of the whole. So we have 12/6 over here, right? And we need to find an equivalent fraction given these two shapes. So I used my quick trick. I divided 6 by 2, and I did that to the top, and I got 6/3. So again, I have 6 total pieces, and each one is divided into thirds. So I'm going to shade all 6 of them to get 6/3. All right, number 4, we're using a number line. It says, Andy swam 8/8 of a mile in a race. Use the number line to find a fraction that is equivalent to 8/8. Now we know when the numerator and denominator are the same, it's the same as 1/2. But we're going to find the fraction 8/8. I put a dot there, and it's equivalent to 4/4. And I showed how you could use the trick to find that as well. Oh, this should be a division sign, my bad. Okay, that's page 1, front and back. Now we are on page 547. All right, circle equal groups to find the equivalent fraction. I divided it into halves here. I could physically see that. They shaded in 3 out of 6, which is the same as a half. And I did my quick trick. I divided top and bottom by 3. Over here, I did the same thing. They have 6/6, right? 6 out of 6 is shaded. And again, I did my quick trick to show. Number 7, each shape is a whole. Shade the model to find the equivalent fraction. So we have 1/2 here, right? Half of this shape. Now an equivalent fraction would be 2. Let's shade in 2. Out of 4, 2/4. Again, I want you to get used to this. The quick trick, 2 times 2 is 4, 1 times 2 is 2. It's a good way to check that you did it right as well. Now I could do this as well, and I could say, okay, 4 to 8, I multiply by 2. So I'll do it to the top. 2 times 2 is 4. That tells me how many I need to shade in over here. And you can see how these are equal. This one's also equal. It's just longer rather than horizontal. Vertical rather than horizontal. Okay. Now this one is the same thing. We have 4 halves over here, finding parts of a whole. So we have 4 total pieces. Each one is halves, right? They're separated into 2. Now for this one, we have 8 total pieces. Now I can go backwards and say, okay, how did I get from 4 to 8? Well, I multiplied by 2. So I can do that down here too. 2 times 2 is 4. So what that's telling me to do is shade in 4 pieces of each one. Okay. And now it's equal, and you can see that. This one's just separated into more pieces. Number 9, again, making groups and finding equivalent fractions. We have 6/8. If you wanted to look at it this way, you have 8 individual pieces, and 6 of them are shaded green. So you could do 6/8 I did my quick trick and I got 3/4 as an equivalent fraction. And that's looking at the bigger piece of it all. So I have 4 groups, right? And 3 of those 4 groups are shaded green, so 3/4. This option is looking at each piece, the individual pieces. This one is looking at your groups. Same thing with over here. You could say 2/6 is equivalent to 1/3. Now, 2 out of 6 pieces are shaded, right? 1, 2 out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You could also make groups of 3, 1 group of 3, 2 groups of 3, 3 groups of 3, and one of those groups of 3 is shaded green, which is where you get 1/3. And I also did my quick trick. I'm just calling it quick trick. That's really not what it's called, but I came up with that in this video. A quick trick. So 6 divided by 2 is 3, and 2 divided by 2 is 1, 1/3. All right, for number 11, you are going to just name the fraction, which at this point, we should feel pretty good with naming what we see here. Okay, so I did that. We have 2/6 here, 1/4 here, 1/3 here, 2/4 here, 2/8. Again, your bottom number is called the denominator, and your top number is the numerator. Your top number is how many are shaded in. Your bottom number is how many are total. That is different when you're finding a part of a whole, though. Things change a little bit for those. Which pairs of the fractions are equivalent? So what ones are equal here? I looked at 2/6, which is this one right here, and that one is the same amount as 1/3. So 2/6 and 1/3 are equivalent. And again, if I wanted to do my quick trick, what do I need to do to make these happen? I divide by 2. Top and bottom, and you get 1/3. So 2/6 and 1/3 are equivalent. 1/4 and 2/8 are also equivalent. 1/4 and 2/8 are equivalent as well. And let me just show you the quick trick. So in order to make that happen, I multiply top and bottom by 2, and I get 2/8. Number 12, okay, a lot going on here. Matt cut his small pizza into 6 equal pieces and ate 4 of them. So right away, I know my fraction is 4/6. 6 pieces total, he ate 4. That's how many are going to be shaded in. Josh cut his small pizza, which is the same size, really important key, same size. So each pizza's, one's not bigger than the other. It's the only thing that's different is how they sliced them. So he sliced his into 3 equal pieces and ate 2 of them. So our fraction would be, oh man, 2/3 for Josh. What fraction, write fractions for the amount they each ate. Are the fractions equivalent? Draw to explain. So make sure you're drawing in this box, okay? For full credit, you need to make sure you're doing what they say. Here, I drew 2 small pieces, okay? Pizzas. Now, this one's split into 6 pieces. That's going to be Matt's, right? And he ate 4 of them, so I shaded in 4 out of 6. And Josh's was cut into 3 pieces, and he ate 2 out of the 3 pieces. So this fraction shows 4/6, and this one shows 2/3. Now, we're trying to figure out, are these equivalent? Well, yeah, they are. You can physically see that these are the same size. Yes, this pizza, now that I'm looking at it, I drew a little bigger. However, these fractions are equivalent. We can prove it by the quick trick too. If I divide 6 divided by 2 and 4 divided by 2, I will get 2/3, right? 6 divided by 2 is 3. 4 divided by 2 is 2. So yes, Matt ate 4/6 and Josh ate 2/3. Yes, 4/6 and 2/3 are equivalent. I've been going through and trying to do some of these before I videotape because I was looking back at some videos and I was just like humiliated on how messy my work was. So I wanted to do like some coloring and shading before. So I want you guys to make sure that everything you're doing, and this is for myself too, is of good quality. You know how the expectations we had in class. I was very a neat freak, you could say. And that's the way to be. You want to be nice and neat with your work, always. All right, last page for the lesson. For number 13, I took some notes to the side. That always helps me. I have this blank space here, and I just feel like I can solve the problem better with it laid out like that. Christy bought 8 muffins. She chose 2 apple, 2 banana, and 4 blueberry. She and her family ate the apple and banana muffins for breakfast. What fraction of the muffins did they eat? Write an equivalent fraction, draw a picture. So I need to draw the picture still. So I took some notes, 2 apple, 2 banana, 4 blueberry, 8 total. Now, there's 8 total, and she's saying her family ate the apple and banana muffins for breakfast. So apple is 2, banana is another 2. So 4/8, right, is what they ate for breakfast. 2 apple, 2 banana, that's 2 plus 2 is 4, out of 8 total. Now I said 4/8 is equivalent to 2 halves. I did my quick trick. I divided by 2, and I got 2/4. Now, if I wanted to draw this out, oops, that's 8 pieces. I'm going to shade in 4. 1, 2, 3, 4 is equivalent to 2/4. Okay, that's my drawing to prove it as well. Those 2 fractions are equivalent. Number 14 is a little tricky. I probably would have had us skip this one in class, but let's do it together. After dinner, 2/3 of the cornbread is left. Suppose 4 friends want to share it equally. What fraction names how much of the whole pan of cornbread each friend will get? Use the model on the right. Explain your answer. There's a few different answers for this one because, again, you can have more than one equivalent fraction. However, they gave us this pan of cornbread, and if you look closely, you could see one was cut this way. And so I continued that pattern, and I made it split into 6 pieces, 6 equal pieces. So the same exact pan of cornbread can be split equally into 6ths. So each person would get a 1/6 of a piece of the cornbread. Okay. Number 15. There are 16 people having lunch. Each person wants a 1/4 of a pizza. How many whole pizzas are needed? Draw a picture to show your answer. So if each person is going to get a 1/4 of a piece of pizza, and if I have 16 people total, I need 16 pieces. So I drew 4 pizzas and I split them into 4 pieces in each pizza. And so you can see I labeled each person, right? There's 16 pieces, equal pieces, among 4 pizzas. Apply this to your own life, right? If you're inviting, 16 people over for your birthday party, it's a big birthday party. But if you're doing that, you could get 4 whole pizzas and split it into 4, and each person would get 1 of those, right? So that's your drawing to show it. And each person is going to get a 1/4 of each pizza, which is equivalent to 1/16, right? I'm just going to do that up here. Okay. All right. Number 16. Lucy has 5 oatmeal bars. Oh, just kidding. 4/16 is equivalent to a 1/4. And again, that's the quick trick method. Number 16, Lucy has 5 oatmeal bars, each cut in half. There they are. Now this is finding part of a whole. What fraction names all of the oatmeal bar halves? Okay, we have 10 halves here, right? 10 halves. We have 10 total pieces, and they're each cut into halves. What if Lucy cuts each part of the oatmeal bar into 2 equal pieces to share with friends? So that means each half she's going to cut in half again, which would look like that, right? You're cutting each half into another half. Now, you can see that each is 4. Each group, each half is 4, but total pieces would be 20. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So, what fraction names all of the oatmeal bar pieces now? 20/4, right? Each group is fourths, but 20 in all. So, 10 halves and 20/4 are equivalent fractions. And again, that quick trick never fails us. Look, 2 times 2 is 4, and 10 times 2 is 20. All right, last one. Mr. Peters made a pizza. There is 4/8 of the pizza left over. Select the fractions that are equivalent to the part of the pizza that is left over. Mark all that apply, which is a hint that there's usually more than one. So I drew out 4/8, okay, 8 total, 4 shaded in. Just looking at that, I can see 1/2 is equivalent to 4/8, right? And so I started with 4/8, and in order to find my equivalent fractions, you could either look at the options you have, but I also showed the quick trick. I did 8 divided by 2 is 4, and 4 divided by 2 is 2. So 2/4, check. Now I can get even smaller and do 2 divided by 2 and 4 divided by 2 and get 1/2. There we go. So that is today's lesson. Ooh, 27 minutes. This is a longer video. But I know we've been away for a week with these things. So just a reminder, make sure you're doing multiplication to begin your math period. I don't want people to forget about those things. 10 minutes to start the math lesson, whether that's flashcards. I've uploaded math drills.